So looking at this, the first thing that I'm going to say right off the bat is compositionally, I'm instinctively drawn to the pumpkin. The house in the background doesn't really push the eye, and it's brighter in this area, so that's what I'm looking at. So I don't know if that's necessarily your focus, but you're trying to go in a couple different directions. Um, the first thing that I'm going to say right off the bat is that you really want to pay attention to perspective. Um, Even though it's a silhouette, you're still going to get things like um, basic perspective in there, and you'll start seeing things that make more sense. So an example is, say you have a wall here, and um, you're basically kind of getting a shining light on that wall. If you're going to get a little bit of a glare on that wall, um, you would get something like that, or actually that's probably not a good place to put it. Let's grab a little bit of deselect. So what I would do is first you need to get the perspective in there, and that's really what the big issue right now is that you don't have any perspective in the house, so it just feels like it's this really willy-nilly random house. You've got, basically, uh, this point here. Um, you've got this here that doesn't make sense. So getting that in there, that's going to kind of solve some of your issues. And then you've got the fog going over it, which is okay, but the issue is that you have no sense of depth in your house. Um, you've got small windows, you've got big windows. I mean, what's the scale you're looking for? So simply by putting in something like this and then start trimming out the other pieces, that's going to give you what you're kind of looking for. Even just putting it in this, a couple pieces here, and then transforming. Oops. Transforming the house that it makes sense. Um, Gives it a lot more depth and perception. And then, if that's the case too, grabbing some of this highlight here and brightening up the interior pieces of these windows will help out as well. It'll get a better sense of what's going on and things like that. Um, but just by putting these random spots in there, that basically leads to the aspect of you really have no clue what you're building in this house. It's just you're putting in shapes to put in shapes. But instead, if I grab some of this like so, I mean that makes more sense. Maybe if I thicken this one up here, maybe if I put some slits in here, that tends to make more sense versus just putting these random spots in there that basically causes it to kind of break down. Whereas if I just kind of start building up, now I have a better sense of what's going on as far as perspective goes. I put in different pieces and maybe things like that. And again, that starts building more depth and gives me a better idea. The next thing I have the issue is your trees. You're just kind of drawing the trees, and they're just random branches all over the place, which is okay to some extent, but the problem is, especially when you get back here, these trees make very little sense. Um, Painting this away, and just, oops, painting these these away, these trees in the background here, gives me a greater sense of what's going on. Now, if I'm going to draw a tree, I would just do this on a new layer. If I'm going to draw a tree, you know, you want to think what kind of tree it is. So if it's an oak tree or something like that, it's going to go straight up. And then generally they start spiring in different directions. Like so. And then, you know, maybe I'll have a branch that comes out here. And trees are basically built to receive light. So by putting in, this branch is broken off or something, but by putting in these branches, and then I'm slowly getting smaller and smaller, you know, and this is just me kind of putzing here. You want to have reference, you know, and sometimes a tree will grow up, and don't be afraid to cross the patterning, because what's happening is these trees are growing out, and this is just me without any reference, but you have to realize that trees grow to receive maximum sunlight. And if you've got a tree that's grown big, you want to have that aspect of what's going on. Now, if it's in the background, then you'll never see the roots. But, you know, things like that are pretty much just what you have to do. You have to look at that reference. And in the end, it's going to be all about how that tree looks as a whole. You know, and if you even want a little bit of creepier, just kind of put something in there that draws that eye. But that's what you're really looking for when you're doing this type of thing, is grabbing in that essential thing. And don't like put fog over things without understanding that fog is a transparency and it layers. So you'll have fog in the front and fog in the back as well. All right?